Welcome to day 5, and we have a cooking demonstration.
Yay!
/ workshop, and you'll get a chance to do this yourself with your bundle. You've got some oats there. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to make some date paste. Now this is something that you need when you're making a few of the different recipes. Okay. Before we get started, I'm just going to introduce my assistant, Cashew. This is Cashew.
Hello.
She's a true. If you're ever looking for an IE who can cook whole food, plant-based, no oil, she's it. She's been with me for over 10 years. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make some date paste. Now, date paste is China's equivalent to maple syrup. I don't know if any of you have tried to buy maple syrup here in China, but it's very difficult to get, and it's fairly expensive as well. So first of all, I'm going to put some medjool dates in this container here. And so we use the date paste to sweeten things. Water in there to make it a little bit liquid. And I'm just going to use my blending stick. So this is going to get a little bit noisy. Can you hear me? Buy a good quality blending stick. That's done. That's yummy. Now, I have got you a handout to have a look at about making nut milks. Have either of you ladies made nut milk or oat milks before?
No.
Nope. Have you ever used plant-based milks?
No. Silvana says yes, she is.
Okay. Well, one thing that you will find is that plant-based milks generally are a little bit more expensive than dairy milks, particularly the better quality ones, but it doesn't have to be so. You can actually make your own plant-based milks and save a lot of money. Tonight, we're going to be making a few things. We're going to start with making a plant-based milk, and I will show you one that I made before. That was made yesterday, and if you look at this closely, I'll bring it forward. Can you see how it has settled? You can see that there is it's darker color there and it's lighter above. Okay. When it comes to plant-based milks, one of the things that you need to remember is because they are not processed, because they're not homogenized, that means that the solids are made to be stable, they will separate. But that is not a problem. You can just stir it and mix it up. Now, one of the things that I do is I like to have oat milk in my black tea. You know, like an Indian tea, you boil the black tea up and then strain the leaves off and then you add milk to it. It's milky tea. But one of the things I find is that with oat milk, it can be a bit watery. So what I do is I pour this more watery form off, and it's kind of like skim milk, stir up. And I keep that separate, and that is really, really creamy, okay? For using oat milk to make your coffee and your tea nice and milky, okay? Remember that trick. Pour off about 2/3 after leaving it in the fridge to settle a bit, and that's perfect. Okay, so that's our oat milk and how to separate it. Now, how to actually make it. Now, one of the things is that a lot of people, when they're making oat and nut milks, particularly oat milks, is that they don't understand that when you apply heat to oats, they go slimy. Now, I've got a PDF to hand to you to give to you after the class so that you can go through and revise this. But generally speaking, when people make oat milk, the thing that they complain about is that they say, it's not like Oatly. Oatly is a brand of oat milk. It's not like Oatly because it's slimy, and they don't know why it is that it became slimy. Well, there's a few reasons for that. If you blend it for too long, if you soak the oats, which a lot of recipes tell you to soak the oats, if you soak the oats, it generally goes slimy. So I have a way that I make oat milk and it always turns out perfectly. Now, I have a low-fat variety of oat milk and I have a higher fat variety. And I'll show you the higher one, it's more creamy. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, this is my handy blender. Because this is a large container, I'm actually going to put quite a lot of oats in it because I like it nice and thick. So that's actually 1 cup of oats. You'll have to, this one is, let me see, this is about 2 litres. This one takes a maximum of about 2 litres. So that's quite a lot. But as I've mentioned a couple of times, I'm into making things in batches.
Yeah, Dennis, what kind of oats are those?
Oats, they are cut oats. What do they call it? They're not rolled oats. They're pressed and cut.
Okay.
The name will come to me soon.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, steel cut oats. Okay, that means they are the oat groats that are squashed, but they're not steamed and softened. When you get rolled oats, the oat flakes are sort of like fragmented around the edges, and don't use rolled oats. Use steel cut oats. Okay. The oats that I sent you in the sample box, they're the right sort of oats. Keep a few of those aside so that if you happen to go to the supermarket, you can compare it. Yeah. I would say that most of the oats at the supermarket are actually rolled oats or the chopped up oats. You may find steel cut oats for sure, but I would say the markets, the nut and seed markets, if you can locate one near you, you will definitely find them because a lot of Chinese people are now eating oats because of the benefits of eating oats, which I shared with you the other day. Okay, now the secret to getting a good blend out of this is actually cutting the oats first. Now, there is another thing that I do, like people sort of say, how do you get it so nice and creamy, is I sometimes put, not always, but sometimes, because I try and keep the amount of nuts that I eat down fairly low, but I will put 1/4 of a cup of cashews, okay? Now, you can use any nuts. Brazil nuts are a good nut to use because they're very high in selenium, and a lot of people are very deficient in selenium. Ideally, you should have 1 Brazil nut at least a week, but do not take more than 1 Brazil nut per day, okay? You can actually have too much of the selenium in it. Okay, so that's got 1 cup of steel cut oats, 1/4 of a cup of cashews, and Xiaoxun is she already knows that I need my ice cold water. Okay, so if you were to see this, you'd see this is now just a very fine powder, okay? And what I'm going to do now, okay, so the secret to making this is actually using ice cold water. water. Now, this room is actually fairly hot tonight. Summertime, I often keep ice cubes in the freezer just for making oat milk. The reason for that is, you'll see in a second, is I like to blend my oat milk for just under 1 minute. Now, if you go more than a minute, these fancy blenders, the longer you blend something, the contents will start to get hot. So you could actually, and I have done this before, you could actually put a bag of frozen peas in here and some drinking water and leave it on for about 10 minutes and get hot pea soup. Okay? Did you know that? Did you know you could do that? Let it blend for just under a minute. Probably about 45 seconds. Now what I'm going to do is, because, okay, if this is something that you're going to actually drink, so for example, if you're making smoothies and you like to have a glass of cold milk, then what I recommend is putting a tablespoon of the date paste in. It adds extra sweetness. Now, oats normally are sweet, so are cashews, but this adds an extra dimension of sweetness. This sort of milk would be very nice on breakfast cereal, like dry breakfast cereal. If you're used to having dry breakfast cereal and you want something cold poured over it. Okay, so this is my nut milk bag. I'll just give this a little blend. Now, in the recipe I'm going to share. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pour my mix in there. Okay, so I'm gently squeezing the bag. I wish you could be here to taste it. It's very nice. We'll just have to taste it for you. You'll just have to believe us when we tell you that it's delicious.
你家里给甜枣是吧？
是的。麻烦你给我拿那个玻璃。
哪个？
这个。Here we go. Okay, so what's going to happen now is Xiaoxun is going to take those what's left over from making the oat milk, and she'll put it in the bowl, and we will use that again. Now, I've shared with you my thoughts on breakfast. I call that the oat cream, and what you can do with that is you can freeze it and you can use it in cakes. If you get enough of it, you can use it to make oat cookies. You add some chopped ginger to it, or some ground ginger. You can actually do sweet or savoury with it. It's amazing stuff. So every time you make oat milks, just put that oat cream aside. You can also put it on your breakfast, like if you've got chopped fruit salad. It's really nice on that. Chopped bananas, chopped apples, some berries. Pour some of that on it and just mix it in. So you get your oats in the morning. Okay, so what we have here is we have the oat milk. It was really funny when I first taught Xiaoxun how to make this. She was like, when she found out how much it cost to make oat milk compared to how much it costs to buy milk, she was really shocked. She said, why would you ever buy milk if you could make it like this? Xiaoxun? Go on. You hold it. Okay. Yep. It's nice. Okay. So you can see it's quite creamy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks real milk for me.
Now, it is different from cow's milk in that it has a slightly more grainy texture than cow's milk, but cow's milk is more processed. So, I mean, experiment with the different types of nuts and see what you like. One of the ones that's very popular is hemp milk. So those are hemp seeds. I bought those in here in China, and you can use that to make milk as well. And that's very high in nutrients as well, particularly if you're giving it to children. Now, because children need a higher percentage of fats in their diet, if you are making this for children, you could always make it and put more nuts in it. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, I think, is we're going to make some yogurt. I know that everybody is probably wondering how do you make certain types of dairy and milk, dairy and egg replacements. So yogurt is one of the ones that a lot of people sort of wonder. This is how I make my yogurt, and I will actually be sending some of this to you. So what I've done is I've taken a couple of cashews, I think it was a full cup of cashews, maybe it was 2, yeah. And I've soaked them overnight. Going to be making some mayonnaise too. Now, what I've done is these cashews were soaked overnight, and they have swollen up. And if you were to taste the water that they have soaked in, it's quite sweet. Now, I have found that I've never successfully made yogurt from oat milk. It separates too much in the lactation or the fermentation process. So I predominantly stick to cashews because it works for me. And in actual fact, I think the fat content of oats may be around about the same as cashews. It may even be a little bit higher. Oats are actually high in fats, but these are good fats for you. So there's one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend that up. Because they've been soaking, it means when the blender works, it'll make a much creamier sort of mix. Okay, so that has blended it quite a bit, so it should be reasonably creamy. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add some lemon juice, because I'm going to make yogurt for you, but from this yogurt I will make some sour cream, which is basically taking the yogurt, putting it in the nut bag and draining out some of the extra liquid. Makes it thicker. And the reason for that is you'll get to taste it as sour cream, but you can also add a bit of a nut milk, a plant-based milk to it, and turn it back into yogurt. Now, I'm very much into saving time and stuff like that, because plant-based cooking, if you know how to do it right, you can save a lot of time. When I make this, I make the sour cream and I put it in containers and I freeze it, which means if you want some yogurt or you need something like yogurt, you can take it out, add some warm nut milks to it, and then just use it as yogurt, okay? But you've got it both ways. Or you could just take it out and use it as sour cream, okay? And then what I'm going to do now is I put some lemon juice in there. There was something else I was going to put in there. Oh, the probiotic. Now I use these are from doTERRA. We are distributors of doTERRA. And I will send you each a capsule of these probiotics. But one thing I will say is once you have some of this sour cream or this sour cream base, if you keep it in your refrigerator or freezer, always keep a little bit of it, because you can use it to make the next batch. Where's my scissors? Scissors. So I'm just, I'm going to cut this open. It's just a little capsule. There's a little green capsule inside it, and there's some powder. Yep. And I'm just going to squeeze that out. It's being very difficult. Okay, it's not coming out, so I'm just going to drop the whole thing in it. It will actually just dissolve. So I'm just going to blend that up. And this makes a really nice yogurt. I haven't met too many people that don't like it. Okay, so I just pour that in there. Here we go. Okay, so this is my yogurt. And what will happen with that is it will actually, it will actually start to ferment and it will rise up. So what I do is I've got a glass lid. I just pop that like that. And I'm going to put it in my oven. Now, I don't know if you can see that. My oven is over there and I've got a very low setting. It's 35 degrees. It's used for rising bread and it's just warm enough to ferment the yogurt. So we'll pop that in there. And I don't think you could have seen that because Xiaoxing was in the way. But what I've done is in the oven, I've put something here so the door doesn't close completely. It needs to have some air. Now, if you do not have an oven, all you need to do is find a nice space in your kitchen or somewhere that's nice and warm, and then it will start to ferment. Now, it needs at least 8 hours. I like to leave it about 12 hours. The longer you leave it, the sourer the taste, the more sour the taste, okay? So, any questions about that? About those two?
No questions, Dennis.
Okay, so the next thing that I think we'll go ahead and do, I think the last thing that we'll do is we'll make the ice cream. Between the making of, we're going to make the mayonnaise now. Between making the mayonnaise and making the ice cream, I'll talk about egg replacements. Eggs are actually really, really easy. It's the dairy it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more effort needed to go on it. Okay, so what do we need? I've got a recipe that I'll be sending you for the oil and egg-free mayonnaise. So it takes about 10 minutes. It's a plant-based mayonnaise, but I've actually not made this myself before, but I've had other teachers in the centre make it, and they really like it. I personally do not eat mayonnaise very much. I prefer mustards actually. So what I'll do is I'll make this mayonnaise and I'll put it in the fridge, and I will send it out to you in your cold pack. Okay, so you can try it, see if you like it. Okay, so this lady who makes this, her name is Kim Campbell. I suspect she may be Dr. Campbell's daughter or granddaughter or daughter-in-law. So she says that it will keep in the fridge for about a week or two. Now, she recommends using soaked cashews. What I did was, if you do not have enough time to soak the cashews overnight, minimum of 8 hours usually. If you don't have enough time, you can do a quick soak of the cashews in hot water. So just as this car started, bang on half an hour, I poured hot water into a quarter of a cup of cashews. So let me see. Okay, so I'm just going to pop my cashews in there. Actually, what I might do is drain the liquid out. See if we make a firmer mayonnaise. If we need to, I'll pop that liquid back in there. So a quarter of a cup of cashews, 7 ounces of extra firm tofu. Where's my tofu? Okay. Half a teaspoon of tahini.
Dennis, what is tahini?
Tahini is it's roasted sesame seeds and then they're ground up. This is actually one that I made myself. If you like, I can send you a little bit. I'll make some little plastic envelopes and I'll put some of these samples in and let you know. And then if you like it, I can show you how to make it. Well, I'll probably show you how to make it anyway. Okay, so that's half a teaspoon of tahini, 4 tablespoons of lemon tree.
那就柠檬。
4 tablespoons of lemon juice. Some mustard. Okay. Now, I will see. I'm kind of running low on this. I'll see if I can order another jar of it, and I'll send you a little bit of a sample of this as well.
Is it mustard sauce?
Yeah, it's mustard sauce. Yep, it's mustard sauce. Dijon mustard. But I use it a lot in salads. So you've got 2 types. You've got one is the seeded one, and the other one that is the not seeded one, and that's called Dijon, and that's what this one is. And so Dijon is often used for very creamy sauces, whereas if you use the seeded one, it's much nicer for salad dressings that you want a little bit of texture to. I tend to use the seeded mustard more. Okay, so it says that we need to put a little bit of salt. You can leave the salt out if you're totally eliminating salt from your diet. We had a bit of a discussion about that last night. And 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. So apple cider vinegar will add quite a bit of taste. And this particular recipe, it calls for maple syrup. And as I said, I do not have any maple syrup. I use the date paste. 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. Date paste. And it says to use 2 tablespoons of water. So if you're trying to cut down on salts, then the sours, like the vinegars and the mustards and that, tend to make up the difference. Okay, so I'm just going to turn that on. Okay, let's have a look at the texture of that. Looks quite creamy to me. Some of the dates have not mixed in those sort of stuff on the side. Okay, that looks pretty good actually. All right, so let's do the taste test. My goodness, it tastes like mayonnaise, from what I remember. Yep, it definitely does. It passes the muster. Okay, so what I'll do with this is I will put some in some small containers and I'll label it and I will send it out to you so that you can try it, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, just quickly, because we've still got a few minutes left before I will make the Nice-cream, well, let's have a quick talk about eggs and egg replacements. Now, quite a few people have got an attachment to eating eggs. It can be difficult for some people to give up the actual eating eggs themselves because they have like a taste for it. But if you get over that, if you're talking about baking and cooking, you do not need eggs at all. Eggs are completely unnecessary when it comes to baking. You can use what's known as a flaxseed egg, which is basically taking flaxseed, grinding it into a very fine powder. So you take a tablespoon of that and you add 2 tablespoons of warm water, mix it up and let it sit, and that's what's known as a flaxseed egg. You can do the same for chia seeds as well. And in baked goods, that will act as the binding agent for flax seeds, for an egg. Now, the other thing that you can use as a replacement for eggs is actually the oat cream. The oat cream that I told you I was going to put in the freezer and keep for using later. That oat cream acts as a binding agent if you're making cookies or if you're making cakes and things like that, so or pastry bases.
Yeah, Dennis, I haven't used this egg replacer, so definitely I will use them. And if something doesn't work, I don't know, I never used it. So
you will find most of the recipes that you're given that are whole food, plant-based, no oil. Most of them have some element in there. For example, if it's baking, that's something that will act as both a binding agent and something that provides moisture. Bananas are often used as a replacement for oil. Oats often used as a replacement for eggs. So each one of the recipes, if you have a recipe that is whole food, plant-based, it has been sort of it's been made to be sort of compliant, then I can tell you which one of the agents in it, which one of the ingredients in it is actually meant for the binding. Now let me see. Let me see what else. I was just about to say something about that. There is another thing, is people like to use tofu. I will not do a demonstration of it, scrambled eggs, but there is a recipe of a scrambled eggs made from tofu. And they use a little bit of turmeric for flavouring and for colour. And a lot of people who like eating eggs or are used to eating scrambled eggs will have stir-fried tofu in a scrambled egg way. I personally do not like eggs, so it's not something that I have experimented with or done a lot with, because it's not something that I've had any desire to sort of know how to make. So, but I can pass on some recipes and even some video links for you if eggs is one of those things that you think that your family might miss. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make what's known as Nice-cream. And what I have done here is I've taken some very ripe bananas. They're bananas that the skin has started to go a bit brown, and it's that stage that they're very, very sweet. You can buy them very cheaply from the fruit stalls. If you get to know your local fruit seller and let him or her know that you like to buy very ripe bananas, particularly in China, you can get them to supply them to you at a much cheaper price than the regular ones. Usually about half price.
yeah, do you have to make them cold to use?
Yes, yes. So what's happened with these have been in my freezer. Now, if you had children, even if you just like having nice cream, it's called Nice-cream with an N in front of it instead of ice cream. There's lots of different variations of this. Tonight, I'm going to show you, I probably only got time to show you strawberry Nice-cream. Mm-hmm. So, but I like making chocolate Nice-cream. And if you buy some really good quality cocoa or cacao and put a lot in, of cacao in, you'll get a really nice, tasty, very strong chocolatey taste. And I think it was Malia. I don't think she's with us. If you really like eating chocolate, then making chocolate and ice cream is really the way to go. So I have got lots of berries in my freezer, and I have frozen them when they're in season. So I've got blueberries. In this case, I've got some strawberries. I've got raspberries, which are rather sour. So what I'm going to do is I've frozen these strawberries. I've washed and taken the green stem off.
How do you freeze strawberries? Very
easy. Very easy. I'm actually going to save a little bit of these because I'm going to make what's known as a balsamic strawberry salad dressing. Okay?
But the moment you buy strawberries, it goes like very quickly in 2 or 3 days, right? You cannot save it for a long time. So what did you do?
So what I did was I bought some strawberries the day before yesterday, and I cut the tops off, I rinsed them in drinking water, and then I just froze them, just like I froze the bananas. Okay, so now with my blender, I'm going to take the top off it here. It has a little hole, and I will clip it in place so it doesn't move, and this is going to get very noisy. So I'm going to put it on high, and I'm going to crush it, and I'm going to use my blending stick. It's noisy, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to take this off. So this is the end of our lesson. It's such a shame that you all can't be here.
It's so like frothy. It look.
It's delicious. Come on. You're getting can. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over and show you. So this is.
Yeah, it looks like ice cream.
Strawberry nice-cream.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
It smells delicious. It really does.
I'm going to miss it.
Okay. And what you can do is, if you don't blend it really, really fine, you can just put the strawberries through it as well. So it's like banana and strawberry, so you get the taste of it.
Yeah.
And that's nice cream. There you go.